Welcome everyone to day 8 of the C4 challenge. I am your host, Drew, from Drew vs. the World podcast. And today we will be talking about the software, part 1. And as always, I am sipping on Four Sigmatic coffee. If you want to get a discount on your first bag of coffee, please go to the show notes and click on the link and get 10% off your first purchase. It helps me with my brain fog, helps me with creating, and helps me with actually coming up with episodes of this podcast. So let's get into it. So first and foremost, I am going to be talking about a podcast hosting service that I use. I have no direct affiliate with them, but I am very much a fan. Every time that somebody asks me what hosting site they should host their podcast on, I always say Buzzsprout. And the reason for this is pretty simple to me. It actually has a very, very, very simple interface. When I first was looking at doing podcasting, what was happening is that I saw a lot of people using Anchor, I saw a lot of people using Podbean and Libsyn and things like that. But my eye was drawn directly to Buzzsprout because of its ease of use. And back in the then, it didn't have as many features as it does now. It was just basically an upload service. Now, I first and foremost, the reason why you want to have a podcast hosting service, and this is the reason for a podcast, is to create a general RSS feed. An RSS feed is an acronym for really simple syndication. So that takes it back into the old radio days where a show would get syndicated to different radio stations in different parts of the country or parts of the world. So what RSS feeds primarily do is it sends it out, blasts it out to the different channels, which is your Apple Podcasts, your Spotify's, your Pandora's, your Amazon Musics, and things like that. The thing I really loved about Buzzsprout, first and foremost, is that it really did this pretty seamlessly. Not a lot of clicks. For some systems, you might have to go to their website and dump in the RSS feed, but for the most part, it was pretty much do it from the Buzzsprout platform. And if you had to go out and dump your RSS feed into the platform, let's say Castbox or something like that, Buzzsprout gives you a really detailed description of each step on how to do it. Another thing about Buzzsprout is that they have a fairly inexpensive free version that if you don't go over a certain amount of hours, that you're able to utilize a free version. But my podcast being over an hour, usually I go over if I do 4 episodes a month. So a couple features that Buzzsprout has that I want to highlight now is that it has a option called dynamic mastery, magic mastering, and this is kind of like a filter for your audio. This is fairly new, and it wasn't part of the Buzzsprout package until I got it. And what this does, it might help you with editing. So it takes you through an AI automated service, and it pulls your audio in and tries to edit it to make sure that it sounds good and it's smooth and the audio quality comes out pretty well. Also, the I would say that the interface to upload your podcast is very simple. It's either drag and drop. You pull the file in, you upload your show notes. One thing and they changed, that's a big change for me, is that they put where you put your seasons and where you put your episode number. They put the previous episode number that you had. And this is helpful because you don't have to track down mentally how many episodes did I do or what was the number for that and things like that. And it also gives you an option to make the episode either a bonus episode, a full-length episode, or a trailer. So another thing that they have is a couple things with tags. They have a little summary that some services use, like for instance Apple. It'll put a little summary of your episode beforehand, and of course it has your show notes that now you're able to use your links, and it shows up in Apple Podcasts and Spotify, things like that. So that's a pretty simple interface to just upload your podcast. And then moving forward, it has a lot of analytics. So it pulls in a lot of analytics from Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcast, Pandora, iHeart, TuneIn Radio, Stitcher, and all that. And it pulls into one space. So that's super beneficial because you're able to get your data in one spot instead of having to go all these different places to get it. And it's pretty comprehensive. They give you a graph of your last 30 days and a graph of where your podcast is being listened to. They have the last episode, the last 5 episodes, the last 30 episodes, and all episodes. And you're able to see the tracking with that. And also, they give you where where your podcast is being listened to, so different countries. And this is helpful for media kits, for talking to people about sponsorships, for even just knowing if you want to curtail your podcast to a certain place in the world so that you're allowing them to get the full breadth of your podcast as well. And then they have another thing that's new too. It's called dynamic content. Dynamic content is basically you have a pre-roll and you have a post-roll. So the intro music, for instance, or the explanation of who the guest is can be the pre-roll, or a sponsor in the beginning. And the post-roll is the end. So the end is the post-roll, which could be your thank yous, your signature catchphrase, your post episode music, things like that. So you can put those things as definites, or you can just put them as things that are hold in a queue. And what dynamic content does is that you put your episode in there and it just plugs it away. It's basically like drag and dropping your episode into those 2 guide rails, and it makes it very simple and easy to do, and exports your new podcast with the pre and post roll without you having to do any editing on the back end. So that's very helpful. That's super helpful. And of course, they have a transcription service. Now, the transcription service, I believe, is you have to pay, and you can go to Buzzsprout and check out the amount you have to pay. But I would highly suggest for people that are hard of hearing, or people that read, or if you're making blog posts or something like that, to transcribe your podcast for accessibility and also searchability within SEO. And then they also have a pretty cool website. So there's a lot of questions, and I had this question yesterday come into a Clubhouse room: is should I have a website for our podcast? And a couple of people, shout out to producer Jemmy, she said in her explanation that to start, just use the excuse me, it wasn't Jimmy, but shout out to her anyway. It was actually Holly Shannon. Shout out to her, Culture Factor. But she said to just use the player, the website that the Buzzsprout or whatever your hosting service provides. And Buzzsprouts is pretty dynamic, pretty simple. They house all your links, so all the places that your podcast is at. And also, you can customize the layout a little bit. So some pictures that will be showing to customize your actual website, which is pretty cool. So it comes in with the pricing as well. They also have some ways to monetize your podcast. Haven't utilized that yet, but if you want to be part of affiliate marketing with Buzzsprout, or if you want to be, they have some other sponsors that you can reach out to. And then also, if you want to have multiple podcasts, it's pretty seamless to host multiple podcasts there, and then also show and differentiate different roles. So if you're the host, but you want the executive producer to actually upload the episode, you can basically tell what that person would do and give them a certain role. So that's also important for your team members and creating team member groups and things like that within Buzzsprout. And the Buzzsprout API is pretty comprehensive, and it works with a lot of different tools like Hindenburg and Chartable and PodTrack. So reach out to them. And then they also, cool thing about Buzzsprout is every, I believe, Monday, they send you out how many plays your podcast has gotten, and then it breaks down the plays per the episodes. So that's pretty cool because it allows you to see your progress weekly on episodes. So I love to see it when I don't actually release episodes, get hundreds of new plays, and it shows you what you're doing is working or not working. So I trust the data, and they like to celebrate you with publishing episodes and reaching certain milestones and things like that. So that's super beneficial and helps with a lot of pod fade. So that's my general endorsement of Buzzsprout. I really love what they're doing over there. It feels like they're innovating at all points of the stage, from creating monetization streams to having a very simple interface, to have a very data-driven, very data-focused backend to show all the information that is pertinent to you as a podcaster. So you can change up your game, or you can do what the data is showing you. Being able to have multiple podcasts on one platform, generating a really simple RSS feed. And the little simple thing that I really enjoy is that they show your previous episode number, so that you are not stuck in counting episodes and figuring that out when you're trying to post your new episode. So if you haven't yet chose a podcast hosting service, please try out Buzzsprout and let me know what you think. I will be accepting questions. So if you have any questions, please shoot me a email at info@drewversustheworld.com. That's info@drewversustheworld.com. That'll also be in the show notes. Or just follow me on Instagram at Drew vs. the World Podcast and drop me a DM. But yes, thank you again. This is day 8, part 1 of software. And as always, love, peace, and chicken grease.